Come on, guys, stop mucking around. We only have 5 minutes until our show's on.
That's not enough time!
There's always time for a theory.
What? Who is that?
Bonjour, my dear guests. Welcome to Film Tidbits, where we serve up choice morsels of film analysis and appreciation for your tasting pleasure. I am honored to be serving as your head chef, and today I have prepared for you all a feast. And I mean that, a very feast that is not to be missed. I have no doubt that all you fun connoisseurs of the cinematic arts are familiar with internet sensation and YouTube darling, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. The 6-episode dark comedy psychological horror short film series created by Becky Sloan and Joseph Pelling and released from 2011 to 2016. An immediate hit and standout favorite among film analysts, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared has been ripped open, minutely dissected, and stitched back together into any number of theory videos and internet discussion threads. Most of these analyses are decent, a few are fantastic, others are barely edible, if you know what I mean. But every single one of them seems to be missing some essential ingredient, leaving the experienced diner unsatisfied. That's why I am incredibly excited to announce that for tonight's menu, I have concocted a brand new interpretation of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared for you to try that will explain everything. Tuck those napkins into your collars, my fine fellows, for I am about to introduce the trauma theory. I have good reason to believe that the episodes of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared are actually Red Guy's nightmares, dreamed in response to a traumatic event he experienced in his childhood, leading up to a real-time mental breakdown and ultimately the start of a reconciliation with his past. Hungry for more? Please don't fret. You can rest assured that this chef will stop at nothing to deliver you a fully gratifying dining experience. But first, let me begin by addressing what my competitors have been cooking up. I think it fair to say that out of the sea of speculation surrounding Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, one particular interpretation of the series has emerged victorious. The media theory, presented most famously by MatPat in the 2-part analysis on his channel, The Film Theorists, with each of the videos getting upwards of 17 million views. In essence, MatPat claims that the episodes of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared represent an actual children's television show, with Red Guy, Duck, and Yellow Guy serving as actors and Roy as the show's main producer. The dark turns taken in each episode are explained as Roy's real-life fatherly punishment against Yellow Guy, who, for some unbeknownst reason, is forced to act on these TV sets of horror. At the same time, those disturbed twists conveniently function at the higher level as a metaphor for how the financial interests of the entertainment industry steamroll the original educational intent of children's shows and corrupt the minds of our youth. As Inside a Mind observes in his video, we were wrong about Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. The media theory has overwhelmed discussion around this series to the point where it's practically treated as gospel. I will be the first to admit that I myself fully bought into the media theory when I watched MatPat's videos back in 2016. I mean, who wouldn't? Those videos are fire, and MatPat obviously knows how to make a great theory. I thought the film theorists had closed the case for good. That is, until I recently revisited Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, and saw Inside a Mind's divergent theory, which brought up some super great points and opened my eyes to some lingering mysteries about the series. So I want to take a moment here to thank both MatPat and Inside a Mind for the scrumptious conversations they've inspired around these films. Seriously, I really appreciate and admire you guys, and I hope this video will contribute to the growing list of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared theories. Getting back on track now. Inside a Mind deftly debunks MatPat's media theory, pointing out how his version of events results in overcomplicated fluctuations between past and present, metaphorical and real. I also really like Inside a Mind's proposal that the episodes, rather than being a children's television program being filmed in the real world, are actually dreams taking place in Red Guy's imagination. Needless to say, he provides plenty of great evidence for this, like the fact that the cameras and other set equipment have googly eyes, which indicate that they belong to the same imaginary world as the rest of the playful puppet environment. Most telling is how the final song states that dreams are movies that play in your head, right before transitioning to a scene of Red Guy waking up in what is clearly the real world, in contrast to the fake puppet animation world. Please go ahead and watch Inside a Mind's video for the full analysis, but long story short, I agree that the evidence strongly suggests that much of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared occurs within Red Guy's dreamscape. However, Inside a Mind's theory has one fatal flaw: the psyche behind the dreams. According to Inside a Mind, the nightmarish end that each Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared episode inevitably comes to is rooted in Red Guy's refusal to grow up. Here, Red Guy is supposedly a young guy on the cusp of adulthood, longing for the simple pleasures of childhood, but forcibly pushed forward by the unceasing march of time. Thus, the playful world of his childish imagination, which he longs to preserve, becomes tainted by adult affairs and then is ultimately consumed by darkness. Now, this all sounds nice and convincing when it's presented to you on a silver platter, finished with a glaze of excellent video editing and topped off with cherry-picked pieces of supporting evidence. It's almost like a perfectly frosted cake, inviting you to believe in its sweet promises. But, as any experienced chef will tell you, presentation always comes second to taste. Administer a taste test, and you may well cut into that seemingly perfect cake to find it filled with salt instead of sugar. Here at Film Tidbits, taste is king, and the taste test our law. Let's step back from the presentation for a second and really chew through the dishes in front of us. Does it make sense, as MatPat asserts, that the Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared episodes, with their frequent degeneration into gory imagery and violent deaths, are a part of an actual children's show meant to be broadcast on real-world television and sponsored by a real company who seriously wants to sell their goods? If I were in Roy's position, no way in hell would I allow my brand to be associated with a show like that. Taste Test says that is one salty piece of cake. And if you're thinking to yourself, no, that's not really what the media theory says, the gory parts are obviously metaphorical, then to that I ask, what does the media theory really say? Because you can't claim that the three puppets are actually real actors in a real-world children's TV show and also hold that the events of the series are totally figurative whenever that claim becomes inconvenient. You can't have your salty cake and eat it too. Now, if the episodes are dreams, can it truly make sense that the intense darkness clouding Red Guy's subconscious reflects a mere unwillingness to let go of childhood, as Inside a Mind asserts in his growing up theory? I think we've all felt this way at some point in our lives. I know I certainly lament the loss of my youth on a daily basis. But how many of us have had "don't hug me, I'm scared" level of deranged nightmares as a result? You? Anyone? Taste test says something has gone amiss in this dish. Inspired by Inside a Mind's call for further discussion, and unsatisfied with the theories currently on offer, I set out to create my own recipe. What is the most intuitive, the most realistic, the most consistent interpretation of "don't hug me, I'm scared"? That it occurs in Red Guy's dreams made sense, but the root cause needed to have much more weight. And watching through the series for the umpteenth time, I found it. The secret ingredient that unlocked a whole new understanding of "don't hug me, I'm scared." How fitting that the missing ingredient would be the missing poster. This missing poster, a recurring element that appears multiple times throughout the series, clearly hints at the possibility of a dark origin for our three main characters. The kind of traumatic backstory such horrific nightmares warrant. Could it be that the three friends actually went missing at some point? Why has this detail been overlooked time and again in mainstream theories? What does it mean for our understanding of "don't hug me, I'm scared"? One of the first details that film analysts latch onto when watching "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" is the date, June 19th, which pops up literally everywhere. There is so much speculation about the significance of this date, many of which go way down the rabbit hole. I mean, props to theorists like MatPat for their commitment to deep research. But in this chef's humble opinion, references to single-day stock market spikes or the British Television Act of 1954 are too obscure for my tastes. Before we let our conjectures hop all the way to Wonderland, we really ought to consider the more straightforward explanations first. Given our premise that "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" takes place in Red Guy's dreams, the recurring appearance of June 19th must mean that the date has some sort of extreme personal significance to Red Guy. Moreover, as we noted earlier, the intensely dark turns taken in each dream feel like the creeping shadows of a traumatic past reaching out to haunt the present. You all have probably figured out by now where I'm going with this. It doesn't take much to put two and two together. June 19th, 1955 is the date that they went missing. My dear guests, the answer has been dangling right beneath our noses all along. It is served to us in the form of a long, in-your-face close-up camera pan that kicks off the third episode. Red Guy's dreams are haunted by the date of June 19th because that's the day a life-changing event occurred which caused him to go missing. We also have evidence that June 19th, 1955 takes place in the past, as seen when the clock points to a photo of the three clearly labeled with that date and states, "The past is far behind us." This makes much more sense than the common assumption that the series takes place in 1955, which is contradicted by the technology we see throughout the series, and which is even a central theme of episode 4. I don't think that was around in 1955. I like this solution to the June 19th question because it's simple, it's easy, it's intuitive. Furthermore, it's the only explanation that gives June 19th, 1955, day and year, significance within the world of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, instead of just chalking it up as a symbolic detail included only for the sake of the viewers. As Inside of Mind points out, most of what MatPat digs up on the significance of 1955 didn't actually take place in that year. And the Father's Day argument may seem compelling at first glance, but if the looming date was part of Roy's elaborate punishment scheme, would Yellow Guy really even notice if the calendar happens to be stuck on June 19th and make the connection to Father's Day? Considering what we've seen of his smarts, I don't think so. But if, as we established earlier, this story takes place in Red Guy's head, it would make total sense for his mind to be stuck on a day that changed his life, a day that would haunt him forever. Naturally, the question then becomes, why did they go missing? Looking at any missing poster, the first explanation that comes to mind is probably a kidnapping. But is there evidence of such an event in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared? Whether you're a seasoned connoisseur or a casual diner, I think we can all agree on one thing. That Roy is depicted as the central villain of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. His every appearance is marked by obviously sinister changes in the lighting and musical score. He is caught multiple times lurking in the darkest recesses of each episode, and the climactic final boss showdown ending of the series occurs between him and our protagonist, Red Guy. As I mentioned earlier, MatPat explains this shady depiction of Roy with his role as the money-grubbing producer who corrupts the show in order to promote his company's goods. But again, let's remember our taste tests. Would a company actually benefit from promotion by this kind of children's TV show? The idea of Roy as producer simply does not make sense. Putting that aside, both the media and growing up theories also zero in on the fact that Roy is Yellow Guy's father. This relationship is made very explicit.
I'm friends with my dad.
But what isn't made clear is why. Why make a point of showing Roy as a father figure? MatPat depicts Roy as an abusive father who inexplicably forces his child into punishing acting roles. But why would the creators complicate that symbolic commentary on media profiteering by adding in the random detail of an unexplained abusive father-son relationship? In that case, it would have been better to just focus on Roy's role as a producer, to not have him introduced as Yellow Guy's dad. If we accept the media theory, then this extra element directs attention away from the central point of the entire series. And we all know how careful the creators are with the details they include. Meanwhile, Inside of Mind claims that Roy is a fearful figment of Red Guy's imagination, representing a sort of adult antithesis to the childhood Red Guy is so afraid to leave behind, everything he doesn't want to become. But then why is Roy specifically shown time and again as Yellow Guy's father? Just because fathers are adults?
And a father represents an adult.
I have to say, that reasoning is a little weak. I ask again, why make a point of showing Roy as a father figure? Well, returning to our trauma theory, could it be that Roy is not Yellow Guy's real father, but his kidnapper? Could it be that our three protagonists went missing because Roy kidnapped them? I know that right now some of you might be saying to yourselves, wait. No. That can't be. Yellow Guy himself says that Roy is his father. Hear me out. Yellow Guy may believe that Roy is his true father, but truth be told, he is dumb and impressionable, and that's no understatement. Think of him like a child. Children will believe anything from a trusted adult figure. In Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared 3, it takes the little baby pigeon only a few verses of song to convince Yellow Guy that his hunger is actually a feeling of loneliness.
Because I'm hungry.
No, you're lonely. I can see it in your eyes.
I don't understand.
Everyone has a special one.
Even me? But I am lonely.
Yes, it's true.
So, I don't think it's a stretch to believe that Roy could kidnap Yellow Guy, gain his trust, and convince him that he is his true father. To get our own recipe going, we need to go a step further than just critiquing other chefs' dishes, and ask ourselves what ingredients they're missing. What do the media and growing up theories not address? One mysterious detail whose significance has eluded theorists up to this point is the D on Yellow Guy's overalls. The natural interpretation would be that the character's name starts with a D, which conflicts with his name being Yellow Guy, as confirmed by the Y engraved on his headboard in episode 6. It seems like a mistake, right? Some sort of oversight by the creators. This discrepancy has confused the general viewership for years, and no mainstream theory even attempts to explain it. But could it actually be hinting at a hidden past? For instance, the fact that Yellow Guy is not this character's original name, but a new name forced on him by his kidnapper? Roy masquerading as father and giving his new child a name? Another interesting inclusion not often addressed in other theory videos is the wanted poster in episode 2. Now, most viewers automatically assume that this is a picture of a Yellow Guy. After all, it looks totally like him. However, this detail doesn't match up at all with what we actually see of Yellow Guy's behavior and personality. Yellow Guy is childlike, not very bright, and clearly has an intolerance towards violence.
Huh?
Pesky bee.
In short, he exhibits no criminal tendencies whatsoever that would put him on the path to being featured on a wanted poster. So, if it's not Yellow Guy on there, then who is it? Could it be Roy? Remember, we have indisputable evidence that in the world of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, different members of the same species may look exactly the same. In episode 6, we see dozens of other red guys whose resemblance to the red guy is nothing short of identical. Thus, it isn't hard to believe that the wanted poster shows a photo of a younger Roy. Age him up a few decades, throw in a bad nose injury, and we have our favorite yellow dad. And more importantly, we found our proof of a criminal past. So we now have our prime suspect for kidnapping. But do we have a motive? I know it's hard to leave the table when you're still hungry for more, but let's take a brief interlude here so that you have some time to digest before our next dish. I look forward to welcoming you back next week because, believe me, this meal still has quite a few courses left that you do not want to miss. And if you enjoyed this video, We do accept tips in the form of like and subscribes, so be sure to smash those buttons before you go. Already know you'll be a regular here? Then check out our Patreon below, which is perfect for you more dedicated connoisseurs out there. Until then, my dear guests, au revoir et bonne nuit.